I haven't said this very much, but I think it's supposed to be, and it's okay if it's a little messy. The truth is that our worthiness is infinite, like period. You can decide now, if they can't meet my minimum, what am I going to do?
Dia Bondi is a 20-year leadership communications coach who's worked with some of the world's most influential leaders, helping Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the 2016 Olympics, coaching world leaders backstage at the United Nations, and advising VC-backed founders and CEOs at brands like Intel, Salesforce, and Dropbox.
Make the ask despite how loud your inner voice is that's telling you something, scary. I don't expect to have that voice be quiet. I think it's something we have to be in conversation with.
If you've ever aimed low to avoid rejection, if you've ever walked away from a negotiation wondering, should I have asked for more? This conversation will change how you show up.
You're not going to ask for more and get it every single time. But if you kind of commit to leaning into and toward asking for more, you will get it over time.
I'm Andrea Libros, and welcome back to She Thinks Big. All right, Dia. So let's start at the very beginning.
Andrea's spunky today.
I am.
You're like this perfect combination of like spunky and serious at the same time.
I know. I can. You should have seen me yesterday when we were recording. I mean, that was a new level of me. All right, so here we are. I want you, please, Dia, to walk us through the journey. I mean, how did you go from communications coach to helping Rio win the Olympics to training as an auctioneer? I mean, what has connected all the dots for you?
Well, I'm driven by two core things. Like this might sound familiar to you. Maybe you've heard me say it before.
I think I've heard this, but the audience has not heard it.
Yeah, two things that really always matter to me. And I didn't really realize it until I started asking myself the question, like, what is the through line between all of these things? And it is adventure. Like adventure is always a huge thing that I can't not chase. And then secondly are the pursuit of deeply connected experiences. And I believe that those two things have been sort of the sweet combination that's made it possible for me to bridge, to go from weird things like, just presentation skills training to working on things like Rio de Janeiro's bid for 2016 games to, auctioneering school, et cetera. So that's the through line for me. And I know that's not walking you through my journey, but it's what underpins how I ended up in those places.
Yeah. And I think that's the most important. Like, what's the through line, right? We don't need all the minor details. We just need to know what's the big picture? What's the big picture?
And I think the big, somebody said my kids were in preschool and I was, all the parents were getting to know one another and I was sharing kind of what I do for a living and people are like, what? Because I don't really do like presentation skills training anymore, although it sometimes shows up in the work that I do. It feels a little abstract. So I was giving this woman some examples like, I do some workshop stuff, work privately with founders and executives, and I work on big strategic projects. Like I helped Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the Olympics. And, there's lots of reasons why they won, not just, another work that I did was not the linchpin, but I was in an ingredient, in a whole combination of things. And she was like, how did you get that gig? And I believe that, for one, it happened through word of mouth, but what drove that was what it means for me to show up in the work that I do, pursuing a deeply connected experience. When my clients feel that, and I hope you felt it,
I did.
Andrea, you and I have done some work together, like that stuff sticks, So it's not just driven like what I get into, it's driven, I think, the opportunities I've been offered.
But I'm going to say, did you ask for opportunities? Because how does this whole ask like an auctioneer thing, how did that all occur?
Okay, so for folks listening, I wrote a book called Ask Like an Auctioneer a couple of years ago, based on this impact hobby that I picked up in my 40s when I put myself on sabbatical, which was to start doing auctioneering for fundraising for women-led nonprofits and nonprofits benefiting women and girls, strictly as an impact hobby. And 20 or 30 auctions in, I realized like what I was learning was super valuable to how we think about asking for more and getting it in our lives and businesses and careers. And my husband, I did not ask for the opportunity to work on Rio's project. They came to me. But in that engagement, in order to make it work and make it possible for me to say yes, I had to make some asks in that. And it was long before I had the framework of Ask Like an Auctioneer. My husband reminded me, like, girl, you've been doing this for a long time. I just didn't have kind of the pattern, recognition of what was making those kinds of asks successful. So while I didn't ask for it, I needed a few things to be able to say yes to it on my side. And those asks felt big and scary.
What'd you ask for?
You guys, it's going to sound so basic, but I was at a point in my career coming off having a break. I hadn't been sort of in the arena for a while. I had a 1-year-old. And I was like, I can't fly nearly halfway around the world and be gone for 4 months with a 1-year-old. So I was like, I can do it if you rent me an apartment and you let me bring my child and childcare. And they were like, sure. But I was before I made that ask. It seems so basic now, but in the position I was in, it felt really ZOFO-ish. And ZOFO, for folks listening, is the language of the zone of freaking out. So it's like when you make the ask that feels so big and impossible, it kind of makes you want to throw up because it's in your zone of freaking out. So, and they said yes, but I was convinced they were going to say no, and that I was going to be, laughed out of the building. Like, no, this is not a family affair. We're not accommodating crap like that. This is way too, blah, blah, blah. I just had this whole story about what they were going to say no to. And it was all garbage.
And then they said yes. But in the moment that it was, you were in the zone of freaking out, right? That was real. I guess that's another thing. Like, feelings are always real and they're not fake. They're not, it's happening. There's some sensation in your body. So I think we have to listen to that. But then how do we quiet it? Like, what do we do?
I don't know. I have a very loud inner world, and I, the ideas in the book and what it means to ask like an auctioneer, I share like 9 insights that I learned from the auctioneering stage to help you make the ask despite how loud your inner voice is that's telling you something, scary, like you're so dumb or you're going to ruin everything. I have founders that I work with now in my communications work who go out and raise tens, 20, $50 million. And, their ZOFOs are very big, meaning they're like, it takes them a while to get to it, because they're making huge asks. And, for them, the risk is, the loud voice is like, if you make the wrong ask, like you're going to break it. And a lot of people are looking at you when it's happening. So, when personal stakes are really high, I don't expect, and I don't think we should expect to have that voice be quiet. I think it's something we have to be in conversation with,
Yeah, I always say you need to talk to the voice, acknowledge it, thank it for being there. Thank you so much for reminding me that blah, blah, and blah. And now I'm going to go ask. It's
and what helps is like, what are the ideas or reminders that work to fuel going ahead and pushing send or picking up the phone or having the request come off of, roll off of your tongue. And some of my favorite ones, if I could share from the book, are like that people are irrational. And, I saw that over and over again, live auctioning stuff that we thought would never sell, that would sell for way too much money, stuff that we thought would fly out of off the auction block that like I was, that went for a third of what we thought. Like, we have no idea what people are going to say yes or no to. So I always remember that like people are pretty irrational. And while, in business, we're like, we make data-driven decisions around here. And that's quite true. But people, individuals, we'll go to the ends of the earth to justify the decisions we make. I mean, I
So
love to
true.
say that, like, just think about all the crap in your closet that you've never worn and will never wear, but you've got a story for why you bought it and why you need to keep it. Like, we will justify our choices.
Yeah.
So we have to remember that, like, people are irrational. And if you don't like that, you can think of it like their rationale for what they'll say yes or no to is not your rationale for what you might say yes or no to. So you can't shop from your own wallet. And if you remember that, you can be like, oh yeah, I can just ask and find out.
Yes. Yes. I always say stay out of their wallet. Like, don't go in the wallet, right?
Totally.
Okay, I have to ask, what is the most outrageous thing, or maybe not outrageous item that someone bid on, but what was the biggest, like, I cannot believe someone just spent?
Sold a one-night camping trip for $55,000.
I hope they were going to, I don't know, Oz?
No, we're going to a beach in the Bay Area. It was a local Bay Area auction
my
for a
God.
Bay Area camping trip. Granted, it was for the buyer and 11 of their friends, and it was going to be kind of glamping, but I'm not sure that it was $55,000 of glamping. But the reason that person is saying yes, actually, weirdly, I sold it twice.
Okay. Did they offer it up again once the first person said,
no, what happens when you sell it twice is, like, you offer it, maybe you have two bidders, I think in that case we had a bidder at 55,000 and a bidder at 56,000, and the person providing that, the group providing that experience, said if both of them will double it if both of them will take it for 55,000. So two separate parties. So the person that was willing to pay 56,000 got it for 55. The person who wanted it for 55 but wouldn't go to 56 got it for 55, and then we made 110 grand that night. Well, we made more than that, but in that moment. And it was just so over the top and ridiculous to us. I mean, you watch some of these live auctions on Christie's and some of there's other places what people will, pay for something is incredible. Like, granted, it's all art and historic things, et cetera. But I don't know that I would write that check. But it's not me writing the check,
Right. It's not you writing the check. So, all right. So in Ask Like an Auctioneer, which I have listened to, by the way, and read both, you get different things when you listen and read. I mean, it's a different experience, I mean, there's so many good nuggets. There's like so much, there's the framework, you've got your 9 things, like you said. What would you say, what are the top 3 or 4 concepts? Like, what do people really need to know from that book?
Okay, let me see if I can get this. I haven't talked about it for a while because I've been on a little bit of a break. So,
oh yeah. So let's pull it out of you. I mean, I can tell you what I pulled out.
I'd love to hear that.
Okay. The first thing that really struck me was set your reserve. I mean, set the reserve. And, like, what does that mean and why does it matter?
Yeah. Okay. You want me to talk about it?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Because I pulled some out and I just wanted you to see what you thought. But we can go on my list.
Yeah, sure. So setting your reserve is the minimum that you'll take in a counteroffer. And we do this on eBay all the time. We're like, I'm going to sell this hockey stick, and I wouldn't take less than $25 for it, right? That's a reserve. For folks listening who might be small business owners, or maybe you're starting a nonprofit, or, maybe you're an enterprise leader. I don't know. Your reserves might be in the form of a level of engagement from a particular crew or stakeholder. It might be around a budget you'll say yes to make a particular deliverable. Maybe you're a small agency. You can't say, I can't do this work for less than fill in the blank. Maybe your reserve is about what a partner or a fellow traveler might give to you back in terms of exposure or visibility. Like, maybe you have a client who's like, I want you to do this work for this amount of money, but your reserve is really like, I want to write a white paper on this. And if they don't say yes to the white paper, the money's not worth it. Okay. So it's not always a reserve that is tied to dollars and cents in our business and career life. Now, the reason that the reserve is so important is that it creates safety for you. Now, that's not to say that you won't change your mind, but we want to do the thinking about, where are my boundaries? Where are my limits before we go into the conversation? Because once the conversation's going and you get a counteroffer you don't like, adrenaline starts pumping, all our defenses go up. Maybe we're at a time in our business where we feel a little bit desperate, and that might be feeding that head trash. So we want to do a little bit of thinking ahead of time. Now, I learned this. It seems obvious, but it's so easy to skip, because you're like, well, let's just see what they say, and then I'll figure out what I'm going to say back. And it's like, no, slow down and do some planning now. So I learned this in auctioneering, because if I'm standing in front of 500 people and I need to know for this piece of art I'm selling, what is the minimum we can accept from the bidders in the room? And that's not always the same number that we start at, by the way. We could start at $1,000 bid, but have a $2,000 reserve. And if I can't get it up to 2,000, then I have already decided what I'm going to do. And so now it's not a problem. And that's the power of knowing where your boundaries are, because you can decide now, if they can't meet my minimum, what am I going to do? And once you have an answer for that, the whole thing feels less ZOFO-ish. The whole thing depressurizes a little bit, because you can now see the no that you get, or the crappy, counter offer that you get, or they might just have some financial or engagement realities that can't get you to your minimum. Now it's a speed bump along the way to where you're going. It's not like that ask is holding everything hostage. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I totally hear that. Actually, I've been working on kind of a negotiation today, in a sense. I've been actually like downloading all my thoughts about it, kind of around this, like, what's my reserve and how do I want to position this so that, I'm okay walking away. Right? I mean, that's kind of what it is. Like, am I going to be okay walking away if I don't get this? I think I've gotten to myself today. Yes, I would be okay, because this is my boundary.
What's that like for you? Yeah. What's that like for you to go like,
it's not worth it to me to do this for less than X. And I was trying to envision myself, like, I would be pissed. Every time I had to work on this, I would be pissed if I was getting less. I would. So, yeah.
Yeah, I had a woman in one of my workshops. I have a keynote around this content and a 2-hour workshop. And I was doing a workshop at a big tech company in the Bay Area. And I had a woman who was like I work with a lot of folks who are in product, right? So she's a product manager, and she'd been managing product for a really long time, and really loved, I tell the story in the book, really loved like, we're helping people be successful. And she just saw, the next chapter in my career is moving into people management, which is different than product management. Just product manage people.
So if it was only so easy,
I know,
easy like that. Right?
But she really wanted to nurture that part of her career, and had been saying, I want to move into people management. And her manager was like, yeah. And it was like, always like, next quarter, not this quarter, next quarter, next. And so in the workshop, we would figure it out, like, what is your ask? And it was about people management. And we got really clear about, well, when you say is like one person, is it about a team of 5? Like, help paint a picture of like, what's the amount? And that informed the reserve in 2 aspects. One, how big of a team does she see herself, managing an X period of time? And 2, what was her reserve on timing? Because she had been told next quarter for a lot of quarters. So I was like, well, what if next quarter they say next quarter and it doesn't happen? Are you going to keep accepting next quarter? And essentially asking the question, what are you going to do if they don't meet your timing reserve? And for her, it was like, I want to have 2 direct reports by, like, I don't know. It was like, in 2 quarters, or it was like by Q2, whatever. But she said that out loud. And I was like, well, what are you going to do if it doesn't happen? And she kind of blanched a little bit. And then she was like, oh my God, I think it'll be time for me to leave. And there was like kind of this combination of like sadness and relief kind of all at the same time, because she wasn't going to be saying yes to something she really felt no to. She wasn't going to feel like they still had a hook in her cheek. And she kind of took back some of her own power to say, like, oh my gosh, I don't have to rage quit, but if I decide now, here's where my line is, and here's my plan if it doesn't happen. She had so much, like, she had quiet power in that,
I love that.
Set your reserve is one of my favesies for sure.
Okay. Love it. All right. Let's go to the next one that I pulled out of here. Price is a measure of value, not worth.
Ooh, yes. This is something I learned from the auctioneering stage because my clients would say, we want this piece of art to sell for $10,000. And I'd always be like, I'm going to sell it for whatever somebody in the room thinks it's worth. Meaning it's a way for them to see what matters, right? So we would sell things. We thought, I remember I sold a daguerreotype, which is like this kind of photograph thing, whatever. It was a piece of art. And we thought like, oh, this is worth, quote unquote, worth 10 grand. It's going to go for 10 grand. Well, we set our reserve. I don't remember what it was. And it sold for like 4,500. And I'm like, yeah, but that, like the person in the room only valued it. That market in that moment only valued that daguerreotype at $4,500, period. Well, and it was above our reserve. So what am I going to do? That camping trip I mentioned before? Okay. So price is a way for us to see what people value and how they value it. And why I like to separate worth and value is this. In our culture right now, we talk a lot about getting paid what you're worth, having the work that you're worth, no. And that's fine, except that if we load up our asks with our own worth and worthiness, the answer we get means too much.
Oh, that's okay. That's so good. If we load up our asks with our own worth and worthiness, the answer means too much.
Yeah.
Is that how you said that? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's like, well, if they won't even meet my reserve, like maybe I'm not worth it. Like it ties too much to the ask you're making. And it's kind of a weird balancing act. I'm asking you to like recognize that you're kind of worth whatever ask you make. I had somebody in my workshop say like, yeah, how much somebody values the work you do, your presence, your leadership, whatever, changes room to room. He was a designer. He was like, I can go into one meeting and, I have huge value to those 12 people. I can walk into another room and my value could be cut in half because they don't know anything about me and what they do is not relevant to what I do, So it's not, but if I attach my worth to each of those different contexts, I'm all over the place. I think I talk about it in the book. He said, the truth is that our worthiness is infinite. Like, period.
Yep. I always say that you're born worthy. Like,
yeah.
You don't, yeah.
So when we can go like, oh, price or what we ask for, whatever the thing is, if it's non-monetary, and the answer we get isn't a commentary on what we're worth or the worth of whatever it is we're bringing to the table. It's a way, it's a clue to see what they care about, what matters to them, what they value right now. And then we can use that information. Correct.
Right? Like it could, so I was working with a client this morning and she, new business-ish, where she organizes trips for women. And her thing is it has to have an element of adventure, it has to have an element of relaxation, and it has to be unique. And she's all hung up on the price, what to charge. And we had a conversation very similar to this. And I said, okay, who's someone that's totally in on these trips, like hands down? She said, well, I've got one woman who has 5 kids and she just wants to get out, go do something fun and not have to plan a thing. Like to her, it's sort of, like the Visa commercial, priceless. And then I have this other friend who has, 3 kids and her family has all these houses all around the world and she can go to any of them anytime. So I don't think she'd pay this. She's looking for like the cheap getaway. I'm like, okay. So that doesn't mean anything about your trip. That means 0 about your trip. That means 0 about you. It
means something about the buyer.
Right. Right.
It's my favorite. And, I confront it all the time. Like I use you asked earlier, how do you quiet the voice? I don't quiet it. I just remind myself of some of these principles like, oh yeah, Dia, people are so irrational. Like you have no idea what they're going to say. Just push send, go. Price, Dia, is not a measure of your worth or worthiness. It's just a way to see what they care about. And let's remember where your value and values are. So just send it and find out. All the while, a lot of this stuff, these 2 that we talked about, can kind of sound a little hard, like, hardened, like, oh, if they don't meet my reserve, I'm out of here. And that is not at all the vibe we're going for. It 100% about you still have to have strong storytelling when you go set up your ask. You still need to come at it with a more of a gift exchange kind of disposition. You want to be building relationship as you lead into the ask that you make so that you have enough elasticity there to tolerate somebody seeing a number that has more zeros on it than they're used to seeing. Like all that stuff is present. This is not about rage quitting. It's about really knowing where you stand and then investing in the relationship, even if it's short. I have to do it when I'm auctioneering. I got to build a relationship with a room full of people who never seen me before in like 18 seconds before I start asking them for tens of thousands of dollars.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. All right. Let's go to the next one that I had here. Find the offer in every ask.
Yeah. So finding the offer inside of every ask is about knowing what your audience is getting. And it's not like you gave me 10 grand for this project and I'll give you these results. Okay. I want you to get a little bit underneath that because there are other offers inside of the ask that you're making that sometimes can really touch the drivers of the person or organization you're talking to. And I kind of had to this became very clear for me outside of the tactical stuff when I was doing, sometimes as an auctioneer, folks listening, maybe you've been to a gala where the auctioneer doesn't sell anything at all. They're just saying, welcome everyone. We're going to now do a paddle raise where people just make direct contributions. So I had to figure out what the offer is inside of that ask when they're not taking home a trip, a signed jersey by their, by their favorite baseballer. They're not taking home a piece of art. They're just taking home their vibes, And so I started to really let myself get in tune with like, oh, there are people, here because they care about the cause of the organization. And the impact it'll have. So that's part of my story. Like when you give tonight, you get to be part of a collective act of generosity that will impact thousands of families in your community. Like that's an offer, And so my ask tonight is that you dig a little deeper and raise 2 paddles tonight, I mean, so I want people to think not just about your proposals, tactics and deliverables, but let yourself get that in order, that's kind of the first order of business. But then also let yourself look at, oh, is this client or customer I'm talking to, are they somebody who loves to be first? Is this an opportunity for them to be first in the market with a product that you're using, to be a pioneer or an example to the rest of the industry? Are you having an opportunity for people to, are they driven, or does safety matter to them, which sometimes is the opposite of going first? Like, do they, in this offer, is there an offer for them to both try something new and also have the safety that they need? So listening for what those drivers are really matters. And I think you can build those into the setup for your ask.
Totally. I love you're going to be part of something bigger. That's
and we want it to be specific, Sometimes like when I do an art auction, one of the things that matters to me is that to invite new people who maybe have never bought a piece of art at auction, and it can feel very, collectors, or they're not yet collectors, but they kind of
to become a new collector.
Correct.
Yeah.
So the offer is, tonight you have the opportunity through the silent auction and through, the items that I'm about to auction right now, you have the opportunity to walk out of here saying that you're a collector.
Mm-hmm. We became collectors about, 3 years ago. I commissioned some art for our new house and I felt
fancy.
Like fancy.
100%. 100%.
Yeah, I felt very fancy. All right. So we get no's sometimes. So one of your steps is about taking productive action when you get a no. What does that look like? And how do you reframe that rejection?
Yeah. So productive action is about like, okay, what did I learn here? What did I understand about what went sideways? For example, you might learn that like, oh, I've just been barking up the wrong trees for way too long. I need to do a better job of curating my audience so that the travel company you just mentioned, she's not chasing people with big money who don't want to pay a lot because they already have access to their family's lake house. They want to go on a dusty mountain trip, for no money. So like, do I have to do a better job of curating the audience that is right for the asks I'm making? Did I get too tactical in the way that I set up the ask such that it was transactional and not tapping into the real offer that I could speak to, So we want to be productive with the no's that we get and let it continue to inform and expand our skillfulness and courage for the next ask we make.
Yeah, because I said to her, if you're going to get no's from the people with the 5 lake houses, then we just need to stop asking the people with the 5 lake houses. So like, why are you putting yourself in that situation, right? It's just
100%. So it's not defeat, it's recognizing that context matters.
Recognize context matters. Yep.
If you're in a room full of the wrong people, that's the wrong context to make that ask. So
totally.
I think there's something really powerful in letting yourself pivot a little bit and not take it as an L, but take it as like just continuing to fall forward. There's this idea that like, you're not going to ask for more and get it every single time. But if you kind of commit to leaning into and toward asking for more, you will get it over time.
Ooh, you'll get it over time. Maybe not every time, but over time. Okay. Totally true. Totally true. All right. So you, I don't know if we call it make an ask yet. When you and I first talked, you invited me to come to California, which was super fun. And I should have a whole episode about that. We worked on what you call the platform map, and I think I should have a whole episode on that. But I created this platform map, and I think, like, can you share a little bit about what that is in your words?
Yeah.
Before I share on another episode about all of my platform map, but I want them to hear it from you.
So,
like, what's that about?
So I've been stepping away from Ask Like an Auctioneer, sort of, transactional.
We're shifting gears here, people
shifting
listening.
Gears, yeah. So I have been in the communications world, think about like professional development, starting out around storytelling and how to be a skillful storyteller inside of organizations when you're having to secure, budget and decisions around building new product, deploying new initiatives, et cetera. But I'll say that I was talking about storytelling before storytelling was cool. And I've done it, I've been doing that work for 25 years now, which is crazy. And
are you that old?
I am that old. I am.
I mean, I thought you were 25, so I don't know.
So it's over those years, I realized I went from sort of skills focused training to now thinking more about the source material and the core of an individual's leadership voice. And in working with my clients over the last 10 years, they helped me produce this thing I call the platform map, which is exactly that. It is the source code for your unique leadership voice. It's not copy. It's not a brand strategy. It's not a content strategy. It's source code. So the platform map is a 4-part framework that any leader can develop that can work as a guide for how you show up in and or respond to particular communication challenges. And it includes these 4 sections. You ready? Purpose, which is not about my purpose in my life is to transform the world for better. That's not that. It's about the role that you play in a room, no matter where you are. Because one thing I've noticed over and over again is that whether I'm working with an executive in a boardroom, that same executive on the baseball field coaching their kid at night, while they have a wide range, they tend to show up sort of similarly across those. Meaning, there's somebody who's great at rallying folks, or somebody who's always listening for what people are not saying, or there's someone who is a quiet influencer in the room noticing what other people are not. Maybe there's somebody who is always bridging ideas to create commonality. Like, these are tendencies we have, whether again we're coaching on the baseball field that night or we're in the boardroom. So that's when we think about purpose, it's an important thing to be able to articulate, so that when you show up in critical communications moments, you can remind yourself of who you are and make some choices such that you can communicate in a way that is aligned to that and is aligned to your most powerful self, or at least make some informed choices about it. And I'll give you my example. My purpose platform statement is that I am an earthquake here to shift perspective so people can see themselves more powerfully. I never say that out loud in a client engagement. But
you don't start with that? That's not.
I don't lead with it. But I sit in the room. Last year, I'll say, and I know this is going on too long, but just to
no, it's good. It's good stuff.
I sat in a room with a whole bunch of AI product executives this last year, working with one of my largest enterprise clients. And this was I had one very senior executive who I had worked with before, and she was, she understood my jam. One other that I just completed working with like that same week, who we were totally aligned, but everyone else was like, three of their customers were in the room. And I felt my nerves come up, and I felt that hot feeling in your chest, your throat, where you're like, okay, I have to be very intentional about how I show up here. And I could feel myself spazzing out on the inside. Remember, I told you I'm very loud. I have a very loud inner world. And I went back to my purpose platform statement and I was like, no, Dia, just be the earthquake that you are, because your job here is not to fix everything, is to help shift perspective. So folks here in this room can feel more powerful and see themselves more powerfully. So while I could feel my head getting really noisy, it helped me go, no, Dia, just look for the shifts that you can articulate. And I found 3 shifts that I could offer the room that got me on the outside of the room an inquiry from a new potential client. So that's how the purpose platform statement can be very useful in high stakes communications moments.
The metaphor thing was really powerful to me when we were there. So, all right, go to the second component. Stay tuned, listeners. There's going to be an episode all right,
we can do it. Yeah, whether Andrea, you do it yourself or you invite me back, we can talk about it.
Okay.
So, and then the second component is something I call provenance, which is a different way of expressing your origin story, which is a lot like where we started in this conversation, where you're talking about what drives you. You're not just talking about your resume. I mean, at the level that my clients are at, folks that are listening, your peers, y'all probably had a similar experience. My clients were like, yeah, I, graduated Stanford, and then I went to MIT, and then I worked at McKinsey for 7 years, and then I moved on. Now I'm on, my third startup. I'm like, yeah, fancy you. And guess what? So did everybody else in your world, So there's a point at which we, as your investors, as your initial customers, your potential board members, as your partners, like, we want to know why you and who are you, and then your accomplishments as sort of proof or evidence. So I can say I've always been driven by 2 things, like adventure and deeply connected experiences. And that is what has made it possible for me to do some of the most high impact projects in my life, working with the Clinton Global Initiative. It is why I was invited to help Rio de Janeiro win the right to host the Olympics. And it is today the reason that my Whisper network is the primary fueler of my business. So I can, we want to know who you are, not just you went to MIT and then you went to, no shade on y'all who are listening and went to MIT, but it's not about your braggables, which are awesome. Yeah. It's about, okay, but what had you do that so that I get a sense of who you are? Okay. That's the second part.
Okay.
Third and fourth, I'll go faster, I promise. Third is point of view and playbook, which is in your domain, i.e. your industry. What is the core point of view about that you have in your domain and industry? What transformation are you trying to cause in it? And what is your playbook for causing that transformation? Once we can, and this is not about your venture necessarily. It's about you and your own leadership. So, for example, I had a client, he owns a big, what looks like a construction company without getting into the details of it, looks like a construction company. Turns out his point of view and playbook in his industry is actually all about culture, not about big tractors and how best to run a safe job. it was about culture, but nobody talks about culture in his industry. He's like, it's kind of, nobody talks about it. We're not going to industry conferences talking about culture. We're talking about the latest technology. We're talking about, I don't know where federal budgets are coming from. We're talking about other things. But he was like, I actually think that the single most powerful tool that we can pay attention to as leaders in our industry to help address things like safety ratings, winning more jobs, talent retention is culture. And so point of view and playbook then is about your own philosophy and transformation you're trying to cause that you then apply to your venture. So maybe somebody listening has, I don't know, I'm going to make this up, has 11 salons in a particular market. You as a business owner and maybe a former stylist, because you're not cutting hair anymore, you've got a particular point of view about what's going on in the industry and how you think about the experience is when people come into your salons, and how you uniquely address retention and return customers and safety on site and et cetera. So we want to know what that is, and then you can point to the ways in which you've implemented that, or you've had that informed choices you've made in your own business that have helped you be more successful. Then I can look at you and go, Krista, she runs those 11 salons. We gotta have her, yeah.
She's good. She's good. I know she's different.
She's really
not like everybody else.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the fourth is so much fun.
So much fun.
And then the fourth one is about your principles, which are kind of, it's important for leaders to have values, but what are your values in action?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? So when you say, I had a client last year, he was starting with a new team. He was a go-to-market leader. And he's like, I'm going to come in and talk about my values, and here's what they are. And one of them was work ethic. And I was like, well, you're going to scare the crap out of everybody when you say, hi, I'm Mark. Here are my core values, work ethic, and, fill in the blanks with the others. I was like, what does that mean? You're some junior product manager, junior marketer, and you're thinking this guy is going to want me to be here 24 hours a day. So what do you mean? What is that value in action? How do you actually turn that value into a core principle that is usable? And he was like, no, I don't actually expect people to work 24 hours a day. Here's what it means. And we were able to come up with basically a statement as a core principle that helped people understand how that actually gets actioned,
Yes.
So
good
core
stuff.
Principles are wonderful. I think I told the story in the intensive that you came to, that I had a client who has a shin guard principle. It sounds silly, but
yeah, no, tell them this because this was good. This was good.
Yeah, and actually that client, I wonder if I have this here in my office here. It's over there in that chair. I had the first platform app I ever created, and it was with her. We were like, look at what we just did. This is like your platform, but it's like a map, but it's not really content. It's like a platform, but it's your map. It's the platform map, Anyway, her last one was the shin guard principle, which was, she is somebody that is super hardcore as a person and as a leader. And she's a data scientist and a super athlete, and is just scrappy as heck. And she told me the story of how when she was a kid, because we have exercises that help unearth some of these, right? And they start with talk, I'll give you prompts to kind of tell some stories, and then we excavate from there, what those stories mean to you as a leader and how they translate into the core principles that you operate with today. She was like, well, when I was 12, because she was saying something to me like, I just want people to to get scrappy. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I get it that scrappiness is a value, but I don't know, how do you actually use that? And so she was like, well, here's an example. When I was a kid, I played soccer. My dad and I were driving to her home from practice. I can't remember exactly the story. And we got stuck in the snow. She lived in a small mountain town in California where it doesn't snow all the time. So not everyone's super prepared, right? And we got stuck in the snow, pre-cell phones. My dad gets out of the car and he's so mad. He's kicking tires and sassafrasa, And she was like, I got out of the car, walked around the back, popped the trunk, and I'm rifling around in my soccer bag. My dad's like, what are you doing? Get out of there. We got to start walking back to the wherever. And he's sort of scratching his head and trying to figure out what to do. And she reached into her bag and pulled out a shin guard that she had and started digging out the rear tires. And her dad was like, what are you doing? And she was like, just give me a second. And she dug the car out with her shin guard and laid down a few things. They backed out and got out of there. She was like, that's what being scrappy means. It means using tools at your disposal for their unintended uses. And I was like, so it's like you have this shin guard principle. She was like, yes.
Yes.
So she was able to use this when she's talking to her team in the middle of they were between Series A and Series B. For folks who don't know, that means her company was funded by venture capital, and she was in sort of between the second and third phase of her fundraising, which means they had a product, but it didn't have a lot of traction yet. They're kind of working in very constrained environment, teams trying to do more than they, have bigger capacity than they should, right? And she was like, we have to use the shin guard principle, guys. And now she had a language just talking about what that meant. That means we don't need to buy more software. We have to build, we have to use what we have in ways that are not what it's necessarily built for until we get to the next round. She could come up with practical examples about what she means instead of just saying, we got to get scrappy, guys. So principles is the last one in the 4 parts of the platform app, and it becomes very useful because those are very often very unique to you, as a founder, as a leader in your domain. I would imagine that your client who runs this adventure travel company, if she had a set of principles, they would be very useful in talking to potential customers, potential clients, tourists around, how she built these, how she likes to run them, what it means to be on a trip with them, which isn't tied necessarily to the brand's narrative, but hers as a founder,
Yeah, that's what we kind of got to that place. Like when you're describing these trips to people, what do you want them to know about it? They don't need to know the details of where you're going for dinner, but what do you want them to know? Like exactly.
What were the attributes? It was adventure,
relaxation, and unique experiences.
I mean, beautiful. I know that's probably branded her organization. That's probably something that shows up on their website and in the copy. But there's nothing that says that she can't, as a founder, if she's speaking to a group of folks, to say, look, there are 3 core attributes we're looking for on all of those. And they're informed by some of the operating principles that I work on in my own life and I know are important for other women. You see how now her unique voice is bridged to the brand content, to the branded message of her organization. And now I have a relationship with that feels aligned to me. I like adventure, I like relaxation, and I like uniqueness. But what I love even more is how the founder came to that.
Mm-hmm.
The operating principles the founder used that informed how she got to that.
So good. So good. All right. We could talk for 100 years, but we're not going to do that today. As we wrap up, what do you think? What's one thing that you wish every woman understood about asking? What do you think? What does everybody have to understand?
This is going to sound a little, I haven't said this very much, but I think it's supposed to be, and it's okay if it's a little messy.
Yep.
It's okay, and it's supposed to be a little messy. A whole bunch of folks I talk to are like, I just want to feel a certain way before I can ask, or they take the sign that they're nervous when they put themselves out there as a sign they're not ready, or that they're doing something wrong, or that, it's not time yet or whatever. And you can't have the feeling, if you're going to make an ask that has a potential to have a meaningful impact on where you're going, it also comes with all the feels because you're doing something that matters to you. So you can feel really intense about it and do it anyway. Your intense feeling is not a sign that you're doing it wrong.
No. And that in the title, I have this book, and in the title of the book, messy middle is in there. So that's very apropos, Dia. Very,
Fun.
yep. There you go.
And it never goes away. Your ZOFO grows with you. You get bigger, you expand, and your ZOFO will go with you everywhere you go. It just changes and morphs as you do.
Mhm.
So
Just a different version.
100%.
Different version.
Thanks for having me, Andrea.
You're so welcome. I'm so thrilled you're here. Where can people find you? Where can they grab your book? Where can they listen to you more?
Best thing to do is just to go to diabondi.com and you can find your way to the book there. If you have the book or you're listening to it now, if you go to Ask Like an Auctioneer, there are a whole bunch of swipe files and downloadables there that'll help you craft a strategic ask. And, they're not heavy. They're things you can do in a short time. I wanted this book to feel very actionable. And so you can find those tools there for you, including scripts. People get a lot of like, what do I say if? And there's 2 downloads of scripts for making an ask and for responding to a counteroffer.
Love that. All right, go grab those. We'll have the links in the show notes, of course. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Andrea.
All right. Here's what I need you to hear. You're not asking for too much. You're probably asking for too little. And the only way to know what's possible, step into your zone of freaking out and ask. Dia's mission is to help 1 million women ask for more and get it. And me, you, and thousands of other women out there thinking big and building big, yeah, we're part of it. In today's episode, we gave you the highlights, but do not skip out on reading Dia's book, Ask Like an Auctioneer, for the full lowdown. Whatever big ask you have coming up, a raise, a promotion, a deal, a decision, don't aim low to stay safe. Set your reserve, know your value. Remember that price is a measure of value, not worth or worthiness. And then finally step into your ZOFO and ask. Thanks for listening to She Thinks Big. I'm your host, Andrea Libros. If you listen to this episode, you know there's a woman in your life who can benefit from this. Take a moment and share this with her. Follow the show wherever you're listening, and don't forget to subscribe if you're watching on YouTube. For real-time straight talk and more She Thinks Big, follow me on Instagram at andrea.libros.coaching. And if you're ready to step into your zone of freaking out, I'd love to connect with you. You can book a call with me and we can chat at andrealibros.com. Hey, by the way, I send a personal note via email twice a month. And I promise this is one that earns its spot in your inbox. You can subscribe at andrealibros.coaching.kit.com. That's andrealibros.coaching.kit.com. See you next week for a brand new episode. Till then, think big.